Hi, I'm Matt Little. I'm the Director of Counselling and Education, Empowering Awareness.Asia, and I'm a proud sponsor of this podcast.
Nice to meet you too. Thank you very much for giving me opportunity to interview you for my YouTube channel and for my podcast.
Absolutely.
So I've gone through your profile. I can see you're doing amazing work. So I thought to tell about your work to my audience.
That sounds great. I'd be happy to share some of what I work on. It's a long list.
So can you please introduce yourself to my audience?
Sure. David Manheim. I have a PhD in public policy from the Rand Corporation's graduate school. I have been working on epidemiology risk and risk from novel technologies for the past 8 years or so, and currently lead research and policy for a think tank located in Israel, the Association for Long-Term Existence and Resilience. We focus on a bunch of different topics, but primarily risks from AI and from biotechnology.
So can you tell what are those risks?
Yeah, so I think that there are a wide variety of risks that we need to be concerned about from novel technologies. Obviously, most technology is wonderful, tremendously helpful for people. It generates economic growth, which enriches the world. And then there are a couple of very specific, narrow places where there are also risks that are potentially much larger than the benefits that we receive. So I think that there are some obvious places where everybody agrees that greater access to the ability to build nuclear weapons isn't something that we want, right? We don't want everybody to be able to build nuclear weapons in their backyard. There are other technologies, I think, obviously, where it's less well understood, but certainly, there are international treaties. The Biological Weapons Convention bans the creation of biological weapons. We don't want everybody to be able to make, somebody could, in theory, bring back smallpox. And that would be very concerning, right? We stopped vaccinating people for smallpox once we wiped it out. And it'd be very bad if somebody brought it back. So genetic engineering has the already existent, ability to do tremendous things that are helpful. The technology that creates RNA vaccines could be used to create RNA viruses. Obviously, it's not exactly the same technology, but there are places where you want to be more cautious about which direction you want the technology to move forward. So I think for biotechnology, there are a number of very specific risks, but it's a domain where I think even those most concerned about the risks agree that on net, biological research is very good, right? It's going to lead good places. Artificial intelligence is more controversial in this sense. And the range of risks that we're concerned about are vast. Everything from job displacement to bias to economic disruption to loss of control or even human extinction. Nick Bostrom has a paper a number of years ago that talks about the potential that there are technologies out there that, whatever they are, that once they're developed, they inevitably lead to human extinction. It's an open question about whether any technologies like that exist. But there are at least some people who say, artificial superintelligence could be one of those, right? Making something that's much smarter than humans that is not aligned with our values could absolutely be a disaster. And so the questions that, we need to be working on now for the coming years are how do we make sure that we can, get the benefits of machine learning and narrow artificial intelligence, and even to some extent general intelligence, without running the risks that exist from even more advanced or possibly self-improving superhuman systems.
So you are an expert in understanding the social aspect, social aspect. So there will be a lot of leaders, technology leaders, who will be, I mean, who may listen this conversation. So what are those, points that you wanted them to think, when it comes to technology and, technology that is used by humans?
Yeah, so when I talk to people at Anthropic or OpenAI, I think we're actually mostly on the same page about what it is that we should be concerned about, and that is kind of the risk from significantly more powerful future models that that could pose serious risks. I think the difference is that the commercial incentives that they have are very much to do as much as they can. Eliezer Yudkowsky has often made the point that he thinks, in contrast to a lot of people who are skeptical or worried about AI, that the most likely trajectory for AI is that it's incredibly beneficial and positive for the world, and it generates tons of values right up until the point that it goes wrong and kills everyone. So if his vision is correct in that detail at least, then these companies will be tremendously profitable and tremendously beneficial to everyone right up until the point that everything goes wrong. So the question of where the line is for when we should stop is really critical. So I think the single thing that I've been most disappointed about in terms of what industry has not done is very clearly lay out where the red lines are and what they will do about them. Is there something that they could see that would cause them to say, we all need to stop making these systems more powerful immediately until we're much, much more confident that they are safe? What is that specifically? And I think that the lines that people would have drawn 2, 3, 4, certainly 5, 6, 7 years ago have all been passed. Right? If you told somebody in 2000 who was concerned about AI risk that we have systems that are generally intelligent enough to be able to both write essays that pass college exams and solve math problems at the level of a graduate student, and can generally play chess or write computer programs, maybe not at the level of a human expert, but at least better than a human novice. All the same model. It's not not a bunch of different things. It's all one model that can do all of this. They would have said, "Oh God, we're much too close to that is something where we should have already drawn the line and stopped until we're sure that it's safe." And now it's hard to. I certainly don't think that GPT-4 is an existential risk. I don't think that O1 is an existential risk. As I've said before, I don't think that O3 is an existential risk, maybe, but like I get more and more hesitant as time goes on, right? I start worrying more and more. And when you ask me, do I think that the models released in 2025 will be an existential risk? My response is probably not. But I think that anybody who's strongly convinced that they know that they won't be is either overconfident or lying to themselves.
So how artificial intelligence should be? Because human has intelligence, so we are creating artificial intelligence to make things, do things by itself, to automate things.
Yeah.
to
So
to to reduce the human effort, time, and energy.
yeah, and I think that there's a lot of what we can do with current systems that's very valuable in reducing, the burden of boring tasks. Though I will say, somebody had a line a year or two ago about how they were really hoping that that AI would automate the house cleaning and washing dishes and clothes so that they could spend their time writing poetry and playing games. And instead, the AI systems are writing poetry and playing games, and they're still stuck doing their laundry and cleaning their house. It's the wrong things to automate. And I think that there's some truth in the fact that we want the low value tasks, the low risk and low value tasks to be automated, but that's not the same as saying we want all work to be automated. It's certainly not to say that we want things to be fully automated without human oversight. And I think that, this is a critical issue where, I want my, my car's engine to regulate how it is that it injects fuel. I want it to do that much faster than I could possibly intervene. Right? I want it to be fully automated in a way that I couldn't possibly fix. I'd like my car's collision avoidance tech to be good enough to be able to stop the car suddenly if I need, if the car needs to be stopped. If I pass out behind the wheel or something. That seems really valuable. But I also want to be able to control where the car is going myself for now. I certainly want to be able to, even if I get in a self-driving car, I want to be able to tell the car that it needs to stop right now and let me out. So there are different levels here, and I think that we certainly are getting to the point where the set of things that we automate is complex enough that people don't even understand what it is that is required to have humans do the tasks. We're getting to the point where humanity isn't necessarily fully in control of the systems that it uses.
So eventually, the governments of different countries are responsible for this to give permissions to work on artificial intelligence technology. So what? So these regulatory bodies. So as a person who is into social, understanding the social aspect, uh, what do you tell to the government, or what they need to keep in their mind when they are giving the permissions to build an AI tool?
Yeah. So I think the first thing to recognize here is that there are things governments are good at and there are things governments are bad at. We should definitely have governments do the things that they're good at. And we should try and figure out how to make sure that nobody needs to do the things that nobody else can do, that governments don't do well. One thing that governments do poorly, because they're large organizations that have a lot of different things that they need to do, they respond very poorly to emergencies. If they don't already have a plan in place, the government is almost always going to have a lot of trouble, in real time reacting. And so what policy experts suggest, and what mostly happens, is governments come up with plans in advance for what they should do. The same way that large organizations come up with plans for business continuity, right? If there's a flood or an earthquake or something else, right? Back when I worked in finance, we had a backup operations center. If we needed to switch to working somewhere else, we would move from New York to New Jersey and, work from there. You couldn't have put that together when the disaster happens. But you could put it together in advance. And I think governments mostly do a very good job of having things in place when there are natural disasters, earthquakes, hurricanes. We certainly have, I'm very familiar with the United States, but, FEMA does an excellent job of response. We have lots of ways to deal with that. Similarly, for infectious disease outbreaks, small ones, we have a lot of experience and a lot of plans for how to deal with them. I think COVID showed everybody in the world very clearly that the plans that we had weren't great for a large event. And governments were really bad at reacting in real time, which, I don't blame the individual governments. Governments don't work well when pressured to do things that they've never thought about doing before very, very quickly. It is a very difficult thing for organizations to do. Generally, governments don't do any better. AI is a rapidly changing risk. AI is something that I think it's very clear to a lot of people who talk about regulation is moving too quickly for government to actively, adaptively regulate. And what that means is that governments need to find ways to have clear regulation and clear limits that they put in place in advance so that the companies have something to do. And companies have said, we want to be regulated. We want somebody to tell us what we can and can't do. I will take them at their word that they in fact want, somebody to be in charge. I think everybody would be happier with, some kind of coherent regulatory regime instead of none. But when those regulatory regimes are put in place, mostly they're not focused on the key risks. The EU AI Act is doing some things that are very valuable in terms of, monitoring the systemic large-scale risks. It's also doing a lot of stuff on copyright violation, which is an important policy question, but is not a large-scale risk to humanity. I think that, it's unfortunate that those two are kind of lumped together. So what governments should be doing is coming up with clear lines, making sure that companies have policies in place that require independent validation of the safety of their models before they're released, and increasing levels of such verification that is needed as models get more and more sophisticated.
So what is your take on AI?
I think AI has every potential to be a wonderful technology that will free humans from needing to do all sorts of work that we currently are stuck with doing, and that it's very easy for it to go wrong. And I fully expect for there to be, we see this now and we will continue to see it in the future. If people write legal briefs that use these systems in dumb ways and it makes up cases that never happened and cites them, that's unfortunate and embarrassing for the lawyers involved. But it's not a disaster. If somebody gives an AI system control of a nuclear reactor, we're talking about a different problem. We want to make sure that we have a very different level of assurance about what's happening. So I'm very optimistic about the potential of AI, and I'm very, very concerned that the speed at which companies are racing to develop systems is incompatible with them doing it safely.
So you are saying artificial intelligence is going to control the intelligence.
I mean, I think, this is a friend of mine made the point that, you could use different analogies to talk about AI. And they are, all analogies are limited and aren't exactly correct. But I think that, in general, you can think of, AI could be, a tool that is transformative in the same way that the Industrial Revolution was or the computer revolution is, where, can you imagine somebody getting by without any of the things that the industrialized world creates? And the answer is no. Like the building I live in the shelves I have behind me, certainly my computer, all of that requires, modern industrial technology. It is fundamental. The computer revolution to a growing extent as well. Can you imagine going through your day without access to any computer system? It's very hard. And we could imagine that AI will be a transformative technology that becomes embedded in our lives like that. But the other analogy, the much more concerning one, is the analogy to the emergence of new, more intelligent species. When Homo sapiens emerged, the Neanderthals did very poorly. If we build systems that are more intelligent than us, it seems very plausible that what we're doing is setting things up to be replaced. Is that what will happen? I don't know. Is that plausible? Yeah, I think that people who dismiss that as a risk, who say that, it could never happen that way, are confused about this. And I think part of this is that people are talking about different timescales. So next year, will humanity be replaced by superintelligent computers? Even if such superintelligent computers are created, probably not. In the next decade, could it happen? Also, probably not like fully replaced. But, the Neanderthals were driven to extinction over, tens or hundreds of thousands of years. Humans, it will not take anything like that long if humans make super intelligent systems that are not aligned with human values for humanity not to be, certainly not to be relevant, but maybe not to survive at all.
So humans are constantly learning species. So unless something goes wrong, they doesn't learn from what actually they created. So what security measures or protocols are the important aspect that these technology companies or the government who are giving permissions to these technology companies both so need to keep in their mind before something destruction, like something
Yeah.
goes wrong.
So I think the first thing to say about this is a lot of the early discussion about AI safety was premised on the idea that somebody was going to try and build one of these systems in a safe way, keeping it segregated from the rest of the internet, keeping it offline, keeping it in a box in a way that it couldn't do anything bad. And it turns out that instead of doing that, the first thing that people did with large language models is connect them to the internet. Building systems that you're concerned about requires basic information security. The AI labs, are not taking information security as seriously as governments are, even though they potentially have something that governments, in fact, would want to steal. That seems foolish, as a first step. Just get to the point where you're actually doing world-class information security. Keep the system, the new systems that you're doing, don't give them access to, the internet before you finish testing whether they're safe. Don't release them before you finish testing whether they're safe. Actually set standards in advance, and this, I said before, but set standards in advance about when you won't release something. And I think that, there have been some indications that, companies have kind of said what they won't do, responsible scaling policies and similar. But yeah, they're not binding, and they're not clear enough to say exactly what it is that would cause them to stop. So I think that, the first step is figure out how to keep the system secure. And the second step is, once they're secure, figure out how to decide when you do or don't release them.
So eventually technology is for humans. So you're saying it should enhance and it should help humans to do better human things, but not spoil the human things.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are people out there who work in AI who will openly tell you that they think that it will be good if humans are replaced by future technology systems. And I disagree. I very much want my kids to grow up in a world where humans still actually are in charge of things. I very much want myself to live in a world where, human values and human desires are what it is that drives, you know, the future of technology. Yeah, if and even then, when we say we want, humans in charge, that doesn't mean we want tech companies to be able to decide what they want to do and allow markets to decide exactly, and optimize technology to be able to maximize profits in ways that make people, that make people addicted to their technology, right? There are lots of things we don't want that are still human controlled. We certainly don't want to move past that even to have fully automated systems that are not aligned with what we want. And I think that in a lot of ways, this doesn't require saying anything about AI being autonomous or AI being super intelligent. The old maxim is, power corrupts absolutely. AI is a technology that could lead to concentration of power. And by the way, this doesn't mean, having open source systems does not change this. There's still concentration of power in the hands of the people who develop them and set what they do. I don't want the open source community to be able to dictate to the world what it is the future looks like any more than I want OpenAI or Anthropic to dictate to the world what the future looks like. We need to prioritize what humans want, and the big problem that we have is we don't know how to make AI systems that do that.
Computer technology was created, not less than 50 years ago. So, yes. So, today we are at a stage where we are using AI, which is automating human work. So, why this much of arguments or this much of negative observation is coming when it comes to this particular technology? This is not many people are accepting AI. Why this is?
Yeah.
Like there are a lot of technology tools and services which was invented in this 50 years, but
Yep.
it was mostly accepted, but this is not accepted 100%. Like why?
Yeah. So I think that um, the pioneers of early computers explicitly said that they were concerned about the future where artificial systems could take over from humans. This was not something that they said about information systems that allowed people to access information. This is something they said specifically about if we make these systems in the future that are more intelligent than humans, we should be very scared. It took 50 years to make those systems, but the people who thought about this have been concerned about the potential for this technology since the beginning. I think that it is fair to ask why AI is more concerning than other technologies, but I think the answer is very simple. AI is a general purpose technology. AI is capable of doing a wide variety of things in a way that most technologies are not. The bounds on what the risks are less well understood, and the potential for it to be positive or negative are much, much larger, which means that we need to ask the question, what is the risk reward trade-off that we want to take as a civilization, as humanity as a whole? At one point, Sam Altman was asked whether, if he had a system that he could turn on, that had a 50% chance of, being, wonderful super technology, super intelligent technology that would be great for the world, and a 50% chance of being misaligned, and, killing everyone, would he flip the coin and turn it on? And he said, yeah, I would do that. And my first observation is, he wouldn't wait 6 months to see if they could make it safer before turning it on. Like, he would turn it on now, knowing that there's a 50% chance that it kills everyone. That seems ridiculous. Going slower allows you to be more cautious. I don't want most technology to slow down. I want most technology to move ahead as quickly as it can. But I do think that domains where we don't have a good grasp of the risk, those are domains where we should be strongly advocating caution rather than movement. I think that that's overwhelmingly the prudent course of action for humanity as a whole.
So usually when I interview these technology leaders or technology company owners, uh, they said they learn from the feedback of their products or services from the humans who actually use it. So, so it eventually, if AI is introduced and implemented in the market, and eventually they are the decision makers. Like it is helping them, and it is helping in a positive way, or it is affecting negatively. So, uh, uh, are you going to say like it is not going to be accepted by people since it's not widely used because it is
No, I
creating
think
problems than actually the benefits?
No, I think that AI is being increasingly used. I think that the public will be increasingly dependent on and I think AI is being used more quickly by more people than almost any previous technology. If you think about how long it took before most people had cell phones or smartphones, or internet access, or kind of anything. AI is getting adopted much, much more quickly. I think that most people who use the systems have very clear ideas about what will be beneficial from them. Not everything that people have tried is helpful for them. There are plenty of people who don't have anything concrete that they'd like the systems to be doing for them. But I think that the number of things that you can have the systems do is increasing very rapidly. And when I hear somebody say that they don't see these systems being used by most people, I wonder if they've ever used them, because if I want a summary of a 2-hour podcast in 30 seconds, I can do that. If I want a rough draft of a report that I need to write put together, it can do that. If I want analysis of what questions I should ask my doctor given that I have a concern about something, it does that, and it does it very well. It's not enough to replace a doctor. It's not enough to replace the person writing the report. It's not enough to replace somebody actually doing or watching the podcast. But it's getting towards that. It's not far away.
So, user experience actually, user interface actually depends on user experience. So, security measurements actually are created based upon the user experience. So, how this data control should be. and how these protocols should be created, or it can be if it is the regulating bodies, government or the technology companies, how it is going to be regulated, and how it will be controlled, because technology companies, the product or services that they create, the applications are, if it is asking a user to give permissions to their device uh, of their personal data. It can be photos, videos, or any kind of documents or files. In order to make user feel comfortable, to make user experience better, uh, if you are too instructive, if you are giving too many options for a user to select what permissions you have to give for these applications, it is going to impact their business eventually. So in order to make their business, technology business better, so they are there are some automations, or there are some applications that are automatically taking the permissions, and not many users. All the technology users are not working in technology.
Yeah.
No.
I think when I was at the Rand Corporation, we looked at doing a study on, how difficult is it for a regular user to set their permissions on Facebook so that they, are only sharing the things that they want to, that they're making sure. And so one of the first things we did is figure out, okay, so like how can we, how does one do that? And at a certain point, we realized we can't figure out how to be sure that Facebook is only sharing there are a lot of options, and we're not sure exactly how to set that up. As the technology experts, if we can't figure it out, the regular user certainly can't. And I think that that's increasingly true. I think that very few people have waded all the way into the Microsoft Office settings to realize that they say that they're allowed to use any text that you write to train their AI models. But by default, it's on. They're capturing everything you write. So if you want your letter to your girlfriend to be secret, use paper. It's crazy, but yeah, the level of access that these systems have is already very, very concerning. I think that it's definitely an issue. It's not the issue that I'm most concerned about, but I think that there should certainly be rules around this. I think that it's unfortunate that regulation is so fragmented that you can't put a rule in place that kind of very robustly, clearly indicates what it is that happens for everyone. When the EU passes a law on this, or when California passes a law on this, it tends to be adopted most places or adopted by tech companies because they want to have something done everywhere. But that has not been enough to stop the wholesale invasion of privacy and kind of unwitting vacuuming up of all of the user data. And given that, I think one thing that is important to note here is the fact that we can identify a problem does not mean that a solution exists. I think the technologist mindset of if there are problems, there are solutions is a great one for people going out and trying to solve the problems. But it turns out that sometimes we don't have answers that answer all the questions, that do all the things that we need in order to solve a problem. It's just a problem. I'm concerned that there are a lot of those out there that people are asking, how can we do this? And the answer is, we don't know. There may not be a solution.
So if there is a regional language, a language which is spoken in one particular region on the planet, and if that language wanted to be a global language, and everybody, should talk that language, if that language is called as technology. So is that possible for technology to reach everywhere and, get acceptance from all the countries and all the people? And do you have a solution that you, you can say that you can create a secured AI?
Um, I think that one of the problems for like can we create this in a way that's safe for everyone? Can we create this? Can we create a secure AI? The answer is possibly if we invest in trying to do it. There's a lot that we might be able to do if we try and do it. But OpenAI had their safe superintelligence team that seems to have been disbanded because they don't have any desire to make it safe. I'm not sure, but they don't have a team working on that. Anthropic certainly does have people working explicitly on safety. But most of the AI companies are not trying to build it. So the question is, can we build a, safe systems? I think the answer is almost certainly yes, on the level of can we build systems that are human level, that are safe for humans, that are not going to do things that we don't want them to do. Almost certainly yes. Will we do that? I'm much less sure. I don't know. In terms of, a technology that spreads around the world, that everybody adopts, some problems are ones where, once somebody comes up with a good solution, everybody then adopts it because it is universally recognized as a good solution. But there are other domains where, competing visions persist and different companies push for different things, and they're competing on things other than safety. They're competing on things other than usability. They're competing on things other than price. And you end up with lots of different risks in lots of different places from lots of different systems. I think that that's overwhelmingly likely if nothing changes.
So you're telling the benefits of AI and also the problems that are created by AI. So if you say that the people who are able to use AI effectively, it is benefit for them, and people who are unable to understand what AI is, how it runs, and what AI is, like they are less technology knowledge people. If maybe that is problem for them. So
I don't
technology
know.
companies, yeah.
I don't know if that's true. I think that there was a time where when I was a kid where they said everybody needs to be technology literate. We need everybody to understand what an operating system is and how programs run on a computer and what it is. And the answer is no. Like you stick a 3-year-old in front of an iPad and they figure out how to use it in 2 minutes. And you stick an 80-year-old in front of an iPad and if they're willing to play around, they also figure out how to use it in 2 or 3 minutes. And if you give somebody a voice assistant and you tell them, just talk to it and ask for what you want, I can pick up ChatGPT or Claude on my phone and just talk to it and say, hey, can you explain, my kid wants to know something about why it is that protons have mass and electrons don't. Or sorry, and photons don't. Right? Like, why is that? Why do some quarks have mass and other ones don't? I don't know enough physics to explain this clearly, but Claude does. You just ask it, and it will explain it to you. The barrier to using these technologies is actually very, very low. Using them well is, definitely harder. But I think that it's a skill that's almost completely unconnected with understanding the technology behind it. You do not need to understand gradient descent in order to understand how to get Claude to write a good essay for you. You do not need to know what a ReLU activation function is in order to be able to get it to write your homework for you. I think that the barrier to entry here is very low. I think that most people will be using it.
do you have statistics when actually humans started talking about top advanced technology?
I mean, there have been fears of technology for as long as technology has existed. There's a comic about two cavemen sitting in a cave, and one of them is trying to start a fire, and the other caveman says, "Why you play God?" People have been worried about this. You look at kind of as far back as we have records, religious texts, everything. Like the idea of like creating something that is bad and dangerous that imperils everyone is not a new theme. That doesn't mean that it's just a literary device, but it does mean that this is not a new thing. People were worried, correctly it turns out, that factory automation would eliminate the jobs of the more skilled machine operators, and so they went into factories and smashed things because the Luddites were completely correct in their estimate that they would lose their jobs if the new mechanized looms and other things were adopted everywhere, and they thought that was bad and they didn't want it to happen. The port workers in the U.S., I think, are currently trying to make sure that none of their jobs are automated away. I think this might be a strategic mistake on their part. I think that ports might end up busier if you allow automation than more than enough to make up. But that's a empirical economics question that people have looked at. But they're worried that their jobs will go away. Artists are already feeling the fact that instead of going to a graphic designer, I can ask. People have been worried about different narrow aspects of technology forever, and people have been worried about the creation of more than human systems that could displace us for certainly hundreds of years. I don't think this is new, but I do think that it's much closer to being plausible now than it ever has been in the past. And I think that it's possible that people like Gary Marcus are correct that we won't be able to get systems that are superhuman in various ways because the current paradigms are fundamentally flawed. But I don't understand how anybody can be very confident that that is true.
So, how to create a useful technology?
I mean, look, lots of technologies are useful. I think that most machine learning systems that people are building can be very useful. I think that the number one thing that I would say I'm excited about is that these systems are increasingly able to solve problems that people just can't solve. But these are narrow problems, and I think that being able to solve narrow problems is almost entirely not the concern that I have, with the very small exception of, I don't want language models that teach people how to build biological weapons or chemical weapons, or improvised explosive devices. It'd be bad if it suddenly got really easy for people to make bombs. But generally, I think that having technology that can help people do specific tasks is very beneficial. The question of how to regulate that and how to tax that and how to make sure that it doesn't displace workers in ways that the public doesn't want is an important policy question, and I'm concerned that governments are not reacting quickly enough to actually address it.
So, actually, here the decision maker is AI more than the government or the technology company because AI learns by itself and does things by itself.
That's not true now, but I think that it certainly could be true in the intermediate term future, in the coming years. There are certainly systems where the AI system is in fact already running things in a way that humans can't easily intervene. There are self-driving taxis. Go to San Francisco. There are self-driving taxis on the road. You can get in one and it'll drive you someplace, and people aren't necessarily in the loop for that. Though my understanding is that they're still using some human oversight for those. But we're getting to the point where there are systems that humans don't need to and don't bother manually intervening in. We should be very careful about which domains we allow that to happen in.
And you're founder of Alter. So what is Alter?
So we're a I think the term is think and do tank. We both do research into questions and write papers and policy memos, and also advocate specifically for solutions to some of the problems. So we work with some of the AI companies, some other think tanks, some regulators, giving advice about what it is that they should and shouldn't do. We're a member of the US NIST AI Safety Consortium. I give input to the EU AI Act Code of Practice. So we work on a number of things. We also have a group that's doing work more specifically on the research program that ARIA in the UK is spearheading on guaranteed safe AI, which is about provable safety of the outputs of AI systems. That you could ask an AI system to give you computer code to do something, and to give you a mathematically precise proof that it does exactly what it is that it's supposed to and nothing else. And that seems like the kind of thing that we'd like to have. We'd like to be able to know exactly what the system's doing, that it doesn't do any of the things that we don't want it to do. And so there's a lot of mathematical and computer science formalization that goes into that. So we have some mathematicians that work with us that are doing that.
And tell me, you as a lecturer.
I'm a visiting lecturer at the Technion in Haifa. Most of my work is involved with research and policy rather than teaching. But I do have I mentor students, and I work with students a fair amount on narrow projects.
So at last, what's your observation actually on AI?
I think that it's there's an old line about the curse of may you live in exciting times, and I think that it's not true that exciting times are a curse, but I do think that these are exciting times for AI, and that means that there's a lot happening, and that creates lots of concerns. I think that the number one thing to say is this is a domain that will become increasingly important to everyone, and it will be increasingly obvious that these systems are in fact very capable and able to do things, and the world needs to figure out what it wants to do about that.
So what do you say to the government government officials who will be watching and listening to you right now, no matter from which country they are, and also to the technology leaders who are watching this?
For governments, I think that there are a couple of very straightforward things that they should be doing. The first one is making sure that they have the capacity to observe what it is that's happening in AI. Make sure that they have, that they have people looking at what the risks are and what what they need to do in terms of regulation to control it. To take it, I think more, to take planning for potential risks much more seriously than they have. And I think that this is, as a very general point, a friend of mine used to say, no politician has ever taken a picture next to a pandemic that they prevented. There's nothing to take a picture of. uh, avoiding risks is something that is not glamorous, but is really important. And I think that, investing in plans for what it is that governments should be doing in response to accelerating AI progress, what they should be doing in response to potentially the need for international coordination. And I think that this is, much like other technologies, you can't ban a technology one place. You can't ban nuclear weapons in the Middle East and nowhere else. It's not a feasible option. You ban something everywhere, you control something everywhere. Governments are going to need to come to agreements about what it is that they do and don't allow, and they're going to need to be basically universal, and the need for that is going to happen very quickly. Leaders of technology companies, I would say, first, you should be prepared for tremendous disruption due to AI. And if you're building AI systems, you should also be concerned. And I think that this is something that everybody should take seriously all of the time. You should just ask the question, in addition to being profitable, is what I'm doing actually making the world better? Are there risks that come from this technology that I'm not thinking about? And I think that that's a very general thing that everybody should be aware of. Am I doing things that might end up being very dangerous or very harmful? And if the answer is yes, you should think very long and hard about whether you should be doing them.
So, if we see human history or human evolution, humans always are adoptable species. So, do you think that humans are going to get adopted for AI?
I think that humans are very adaptable. I think that, the inductive fallacy, the idea that every time in the past it has worked okay, is a very dangerous way to reason. Nassim Nicholas Taleb talks about the turkey. Every day things are going fine up until, before Thanksgiving when its head gets chopped off. Humans are very adaptable, and I think that that's a wonderful thing, and I think that it certainly bodes well for humans' ability to deal with a world in which there is increasingly, increasing change from AI systems, but it's certainly not a guarantee that things go well. And I think that, we should take that seriously.
So, at last, what's your observation about my work? Have you seen any videos of mine on YouTube?
I have I listened to a couple of interviews, and actually I will admit I cheated and asked ChatGPT to summarize a couple of the other ones. And they seem great.
So, I'm actually a technologist. I work for a UK company as a DevOps engineer. So that's my full-time role. Apart from this, I'm interviewing experts like you who are from different parts of the world and who are into different professions, especially who are working in technology, and to enhance my skills and to let the world know different species and different humans who are working in different subjects and how they are thinking, what they are thinking, and what they are contributing to the planet. So how this experience is going to contribute for me and for my future, and also for the listeners and viewers who are watching and listening to my work.
Yeah, I think that the implication for programmers is that right now these systems cannot do system design, but they can certainly do low-level coding. They will make people who are who are able to code minimally much more proficient, and they will, for the coming year, probably do very little in terms of architecting more complex systems. I think that that's the direction that smart software engineers should be moving, but I certainly don't think that that's a reliably safe niche in the coming years. On the other hand, I'm not sure that any jobs are. I think that we're in for a pretty wild ride over the coming years.
So how this communication with different humans are going to help me?
Um, I mean, I think that there are a lot of different um, ways that 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 networking and talking to the right people can be helpful for you.
Great. Can I put this video on my YouTube channel with your permission?
Absolutely.
And also, can I put this audio and video clip on my podcast, website, internet, social media, everywhere with your
Yes,
permission?
yes. I'd be very happy for you to do that.
So, do you want to share your online presence to my audience?
I mean, alter.org.il, or you can Google David Manheim. I'm pretty easy to find on social media of all sorts.
I'll put the link on the screen. People who finds a video anywhere in the internet can able to see it.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a good
Thank you,
day.
David, thank you for your presence. Yeah. Bye.